Thank you, Shanila. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gana Meher. I formally welcome you all to the PUAN Regional Talk series. Today, in the pretext of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we will be talking about issues and solutions faced by persons with disabilities in the region. And as we have this discussion, we just found out today that President Biden has announced Sarah Minkara as United States Special Advisor on International Disability Rights. She's a visually impaired, blind Muslim disability right advocate. So all these things also tells us that how important is the issues and challenges faced by persons with disabilities across the world, locally and regionally as well. And thank you so much, all of you, to take time out for this conversation. And I'm very excited today to kind of know and understand that what are the other disability activists around our region and what are their works and everything. So before we start, I would request you guys to introduce yourself quickly and just tell us about like what are your major areas of work just in a minute or so. So I think we can start with Bangladesh. Alumni from Bangladesh, please.
Okay, thank you very much for arranging such regional scope for discussion about this important topic. My name is Salahuddin Ahmed Sharif. I have been working in the field of disability for the last 15 years, and professionally I am an occupational therapist. At the moment I am working for International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent there as a PMER manager for planning, monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. So my role there as a program implementing, monitoring, but other than program implementing, monitoring, and evaluation, I have also some role to see how disabled people are incorporated in the humanitarian and development program with the certain indicators set at the beginning of the program, so that people with disability are inclusive in the program, all kind of program. It's not necessarily for the health program, it is also for the water sanitation program, also livelihood program, so that people with disabilities are part of our beneficiary list. Also they are also having the equal access and equal opportunity to all those project scopes of facilities. So and also before that I used to work for a different disability organization. One of them is an activist organization, which is Bangladesh Pratibandhi Kalyan Samiti, and also I work for one pioneer organization named Interlife Bangladesh, who has the organization started disability program in the 90s, and I used to work there as an occupational therapist and also worked there as a disability trainer, and also later on I was there as coordinator of the disability program assistive device delivery system in Bangladesh. And then for the Bangladesh Pratibandhi Kalyan Samiti, the activist organization, I worked there as a program manager and also different role, also planning program manager. So over the 15 and more than 15 years, I have been actually involved in many roles in different organizations. That's my brief of career. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salahuddin. Thank you. Can we move to the other distinguished alumni from Bangladesh who have joined us? Mehbooba.
Good afternoon and Assalamu alaikum. I am Mahbooba Akhtar. I am a special education teacher. At present, I am working in an institute, PUAN, Institute of Special Education. My designation is senior special educator, and at present, I am the in charge of a PUAN junior secondary school for students with special needs, which follow national curriculum. I have obtained my graduation and post-graduation from special education, and after that I join directly in a special institution like Prayash. And still now I am here. So in this long journey, 10 years journey, I have the experience to work with intellectually disabled children with autism, vision impairment, hearing impairment, SDVI, and MDVI. So at this present time, I'm responsible to work along with the team to plan, guide, and coordinate, monitor, and record the teaching learning process and student progress, to train teacher and parents, and to ensure quality education for children with special needs so that they become self-reliant and mainstream. That's all from me.
Thank you. Thank you. Juan, can you hear us?
Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So this is Jivan William Gomez. I'm a person with cerebral palsy and a disability activist from Bangladesh. So after working with 22 years in the disability sector, I am now working with the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, at British High Commission, Dhaka, as a Deputy Program Manager. And here my additional roles include technology lead, learning development champion. I have varied experience in the areas of program management, organizational capacity building, and disability inclusive development and ICT. I have founded Turning Point Foundation, a leading disabled people's organization in Bangladesh. And the Turning Point Foundation is working in major two areas: capacity building and advocacy to promote inclusion of persons with disabilities. And I have also established an IT startup. It's named AAIT to provide training and services on web development, graphics design, and video animation. I am now working to set up JustWorks, an online marketplace, so that people with disabilities and limited mobility can earn their livelihood by freelancing from home. Through all of this combined effort, I want to make difference in the world. Besides, I have also worked with World Bank, Abilis Foundation, Handicap International, Caritas Bangladesh, and Edit International, and some other local organizations. So I'm also a member of the National Monitoring Committee formed by the government of Bangladesh following the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, CRPD. Besides, I was involved in the different committees and activities of the National Human Rights Commission, Neuro Developmental Disability Trust, and other initiatives of the government. I have obtained Master of Development Studies, MDS, and Master of Science in Psychology. I have participated in many professional trainings in different countries like US, UK, Finland, France, and I love to spend my leisure time with my family, travel, and reading books. So my motto is to inspire others through my life and action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan. Before moving on to Nepal, everybody, because we're sort of short on time, so I would urge all of you to keep your bios to 1 minute and your areas of trust. We already have the bios with us, so I think whosoever wants to connect after this, we can. So I think moving on to the distinguished alumni from Nepal, and then we'll move towards Pakistan. Bimal, if you want to.
Okay. Hello, namaste everybody. This is Bimal Paudel, a person with visual impairment. I'm currently serving as a program officer of partnership for CBM Global. I have been also getting MPhil degree in sociology with the focus of gender and disability. I have been actively engaged in disability rights movement for last 15 years here in Nepal. I'm also the co-founder for Blind Cricket Association Nepal, which also established a blind woman cricket team, first ever in the world. I'm mostly passionate on disability inclusive development with the focus of accessibility, employability promotion, and youth rights. So I got the chance to participate in IVLP batch 2019. That program specifically added knowledge and energy to make more efforts on those issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Neera and Amrita. Whoever wants to go first.
Okay, I will start. Namaste, everyone. I am Amrita, a 2018 Community Solutions Program alumna. I am also a social inclusion advocate, speaking up for people with disabilities through blogging, storytelling, media, and collaborating with other similar initiations. Besides, I'm one of the co-founders of Success Foundation, which aims to create equal opportunity and independence for people with disabilities through formal and non-formal education and life skills. My main goal is to improve the perception of media persons, public builders, and general public regarding capability and image of people with disabilities so that we can live without prejudice and discrimination in society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste and afternoon. I'm Meera Adhikari. Currently, I live in Lalitpur district in Nepal. I'm the government employee. Currently, I'm working in the Lalitpur Metropolitan in the capacity of section officer. Here, my duty is to issue disability ID card and provide different kind of service to the women because this is the main section for the women and disability. Besides, I'm involving with the disability activism also because I myself visually impaired woman. I am the advisor of Blind Women Association Nepal, which organization is established by myself. I'm also a coordinator of Nepal coordinator in the auditing committee of Nepal Association of the Blind. My motto is to engage or to promote employment in the government sector and empower women with disability for independent living. Thank you.
Thank you, Neeraj. Thank you. So I think we can move to Amin from Pakistan.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So my name is Amin. I work for Now PDP. It's a disability inclusion initiative working in the areas of education and economic empowerment. So we have got various skills development program for people with disabilities. Once people with disabilities are trained, now we have another team that works with various mainstream employers for the placements of these people with disabilities. So we have got some other initiatives like we have got, you must have seen in my bio as well that we run a rickshaw fleet by people with disabilities. It's a hand controlled rickshaw that can be driven by people with lower limb disabilities. So I was part of the IVLP program in 2019. One of my colleagues also there, Bimal from Nepal. So we were from the same program, and I look forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Amin. Amin and me happens to be colleagues as well. So yes, Saad, so can you introduce yourself,
Yes.
please?
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Well, it's evening here, and most of the evening. It's a pleasure to be here among such givers, basically, and it's amazing work that I hear all of you doing. So my work has been a bit diverse. I started out in construction technology. Then I ended up working in the legal sector. I practiced for a bit. I also taught at a couple of universities. Then in 2010, I started my own initiative by the name of the Knowledge Factory, and that was basically an initiative for civic development. We had a space which conducted cultural courses, civic courses, life learning courses. And over time, I've sort of moved out into the entrepreneurship space because I feel deeply that that's somewhere where there are a lot of sustainable solutions for a lot of big problems that we have. So currently I'm working with Natural Technologies as well in their incubator, and I'm their chief mentor for startups. And otherwise, I just love to help people. That's what I think.
Thank you, Saad. So I think those of you who joined us late, just to tell you, I think we'll start with some of the questions around the work areas that all of you are doing. And in the open discussion, then we'll be sharing our regional learnings with each other, like, what Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan's, and to understand, like, how disability laws are happening there, what kind of like, so that we can like, gain some insights around this. So in this regard, Amrita, my first question would be to you. What are some of the cultural and attitudinal barriers faced by persons with disabilities that actually hinder their employment chances in the mainstream?
There are so many attitudinal barriers. The most difficult barriers is to overcome. One of is people with disabilities are always seen as one of the major attitudinal barriers. And culturally, we have many religions that disability is a past sin, or it's a bad karma, something like that. And that is one of the reasons where
So, Amin, I would now move on to you. So, you've been working around the issues of employment for quite some time in Pakistan. And what has been your experience in reaching out to organizations and convincing them, especially to include persons with disabilities in the mainstream?
It's challenging. It starts with creating stories, success stories from one employee in an organization, and then the organization realizes that they can move on forward. So the process that we go through which we do the disability inclusion of persons with disabilities, it starts from uh, analyzing what sort of needs are there in the organization, whether they would need any infrastructural changes in an organization, if there are any attitudinal barriers, or a team goes inside and they analyzes all these things, infrastructural barriers, the attitudinal barriers, and we design a program based on those requirements. So for example, if I am going to a bank, so I can include person with disabilities from an employee perspective as well, and from a customer perspective as well. So I'll go there and analyze that what are the changes in the infrastructure accessible. So if a customer with disabilities comes in, they can access the services. Similarly, the branch should be accessible, so employee with disabilities can be part of that. Though to hire people with disabilities, but they don't know the process that how this should be done. So we go to these organizations and then we provide disability sensitization trainings for the employees. We provide HR trainings. So these employees can know that whenever a person with disability comes in your organization, how to deal with that. So it includes like how to do interviews, how to do various other things. So once these things are done, we have a pool of people with disabilities in our database, and through our training programs, then we place those people with disabilities on these organizations. So what we have realized from our experience, that if you go to an organization with this kind of process, the success rates are usually higher. Instead of just finding a job and finding a person with disabilities and matching them. So this has been a successful thing for us.
Right. Thank you, Amin. I think building on what Amin has said, Salahuddin, I'll move to you because you have vast experience in also developing trainings for persons with disabilities. How do you think the gap can be bridged around training and the industry needs today? And as we were talking about earlier as well, what are some of the ground level challenges that are faced by persons with disabilities?
Thank you. This is very crucial, relevant question in terms of person with disability to access to have a employment. First and foremost things is policy. If you have policy does not necessarily mean it is policy at the national level. We have already a disability rights policy, but also we have to have a policy at the very much organizational level. When I hire a disabled person as an employee, then do we have a enabling environment for the person to continue his job here? Is his office at the ground floor or up floor? If it is ground floor, then how the setup is all about, how the furniture in interior things is all about. And these are the very crucial questions we have to ask before employing a person with disability to have an enabling environment. That's what we ensure whenever we have to hire a person with disability, or also when you circulate a job, we have to deliberately mention that person with disability has to be are encouraged to apply, so that person with disability do not feel the ashamed to apply whether I will be called or not, something like this. So this is very important. And also we from our perspective is this is how we have to ensure at the very ground level. And also if we hire a person with disability, it is not just a person with physical disability, person with there are person with visual impairment, person with some kind of employment, intellectual disability. So variation of disability also important to be considered when we hire some specific empowerment types. Then we need to ensure this kind of facility should be there to address his impairment, to address his barriers. uh, these are the things actually we from our side at the moment, the organization I work for, we want to ensure first. And then after policy level, then we need to as who it is Amir says, just only job matching is not enough. So beyond job matching, we need to ensure the attitudinal stuff also, whether the employers has a positive attitude towards the person with disability. Does he have the attitude to uh, to adopt the disability policy in his organizations? So these are the very strategic issues need to be incorporated in the organizational level, and then we can say the environment is very much enabling to hire a person with disability and continue. I have also experienced conducting research on employment, monitoring disabled people's employment
Right.
rights. So this the findings of that monitoring study is uh, the main barrier is the attitude at the beginning of their community, community or their home level or the employer level. So if attitudinal barrier from the systematic side and from the organization side and from his community side is removed, then the next thing is we need to do some kind of environmental things. Built environment is so favorable for him to continue job or for him to be welcome by the employer. So there are many side or factors for disabled persons to be feel comfortable to be to get employment opportunities. That's what I.
Right. Thank you so much, Salahuddin, for highlighting this. I think, Neeraji, I will move to you because as Salahuddin has also mentioned that each disability needs to have its own kind of accommodations. And you've been working in a government department. How forthcoming is the government in Nepal in terms of ensuring accommodations for persons with disabilities, and how your experience has been there?
Thank you. I'm myself is a blind person. I have been working in the government from 2009. So I have various experience because it depends on the organization. Um, Actually, in Nepal, we have diversity in disability. Government also categorized it into 10 types. and the 4 types of card we have been distributed to them. Different categories or different disability need different kind of support. But in our country, I have experienced that government just has adapt the provision for 5% quota as a reservation for all kinds of disability. So most of them who entered into the job, they are physical disability. Because other persons like visually impaired, deaf, there is no facility of accessible format for the reading, there is no accessible curriculum, and for the deaf person, there is no mechanism for sign language interpreter. That's my colleagues and I myself raising voice for equal treatment for different kinds of disability and make space to entertain such a provision for all kinds of disability. Still, there is some improvement, like for the visually impaired, the Public Service Commission has removed the compulsory question for the IQ because blind person cannot write independently because we have to write attend the exam with the help of scriber. So now there is little bit change, but we need to work hard. There is lot of problem, though there is within 12, 13 years, there is 999 persons with disability has got government job, but most of them are not satisfied with the work because there is no working environment. Our previous colleagues has already focused on the environmental barrier. So we might also facing with that type of barrier because physical barrier is one kind of barrier, but there is other kind of barrier in the offices removing now, but there is a technical, physical, and environmental barrier that we have to work together to remove such barriers. I think that's all right now.
Right. Thank you, Neeraji. Amrita, you want to add something to the conversation as you were mentioning?
Thank you. I missed some points because of confusion. I'm sorry for that. There are many attitudinal barriers and physical barriers we face on a daily basis while applying for jobs or going for interviews. So I would like to highlight some points. People with disabilities are always looked down upon as incapable of achieving a task without the opportunity to show their skills. We simply want employers to see at our abilities, not disability. For example, when I was in America during my CSP fellowship, one of my colleagues was quadriplegic, that means paralysis from the neck down. He could use only his hands with limited movements. He was very creative and capable to work as everyone with the right equipment and accommodation. This is one of the examples that show people with disabilities are creative and can maintain strong work ethics and values in an accessible environment. Just because someone has a disability doesn't mean they are incompetent of doing their jobs. Unlike attitudinal barriers, people with disabilities also face physical barriers. Most of the private, public, and government offices are inaccessible for people with disabilities. Many employers assume that making a ramp is fully accessible. That's not true. There are different adjustment and accommodation that includes accessible toilet, computer desks, water fountain, and other adaptive technologies. For example, someone is visually impaired, they need a software on their computer to navigate. If someone is in a wheelchair like me, there should be wheelchair accessible computer table that can adjust to their heights. Lastly, I would like to highlight some points. How can we improve these barriers so that people with disabilities can experience equal opportunities, equal access to workplace services, and live independently? Number one, need of awareness and education for companies and employers about what disability means and what people with disabilities can do. Number two, need of implementation of UNCRPD and national laws and policies, because we have very good laws and policies. Also, consultation of DPOs or people with disabilities before making accessible building and disability needs services. We should also have access to disability specific equipment and technologies such as wheelchair, crutches, visually impaired friendly computers, and other services to enhance our abilities. Lastly, need of representation of people with disabilities is very important in every sectors, because I believe representation is power. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amrita. Mehbooba, moving on to you, because I think everybody's talking about employment and their challenges, but you're also working at a very ground level in terms of ensuring education. So that's the root cause of actually a lot of persons with disabilities do not have access to education, and how that can later on exacerbate the challenges for them. So if you could shed light on that.
Thank you. Before starting, I want to say that once there was a time when establishing an education system for persons with disability was a big challenge. Now we have been able to overcome that. But now, in this point, we are struggling to promote job opportunity for a person with disability. If we think, we find two types of job opportunity for everyone. First one is the job which we need to obtain some formal degree, and others job we need vocational or technical training. The number of people people with disability who have obtained a degree through formal education is comparatively less. So job opportunities are becoming limited at the first here. I am working in this organization, and this is basically we work basically work for holistic development of person with disability. So we started our program for 3 years to 20 years. That means we starting from ECD Early Childhood Development Program to vocational to mainstream student through vocational training. So in this system, we found different types of challenges. Like first one is in our country there is a quota system in the public sector for persons with disability, but there is not quota required for employment in the private sector. And this has a profound impact on the employment rates among persons with disability, as the private sectors, especially the government sectors, is the biggest employer in Bangladesh. The most important thing is the employer's negative attitude and lack of knowledge that persons with disability possesses on their capacity and potentials. They assume that they will not be able to as productive, as contributive in the work as other employees of similar work. So job opportunities become so limited. Though we prepare our students for a suitable job, but working environment and the lack of positive attitude of employer, it's a big obstacle here. Besides, parental positive attitude and acceptance towards all kinds of work is also a barrier. I want to share here my personal experience. One of our students, after completing certain formal education, we feel the students need to be employed through vocational training. So we sat together with their parents and tried to make some plan for her future. But unfortunately, the parents directly said, I don't want to give my child such work. So parental acceptance towards job is a most necessary thing in this step, because we work with person with different kind of disability like autism, intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, hearing impairment. So and they maximum students cannot go through the formal education. Sometimes we need to provide them vocational training. So we have to understand the vocational training trades. Like in vocational training trades, we offer students like cooking, baking, then office and shop management, computer literacy, computer operator, this type of jobs. So parents have to align with us. They have to accept this kind of job for their kids. But here we are very unfortunate that we are not getting enough support from the parents. Beside this, I want to share that we have a different kind of policies for the person with disability, but Disability Act addresses the issues of access to transport, but detailed guidelines or social practices prevent effective implementation. Some cases, job places are far away from the person's home. In that cases, our parents don't want to interest to go their child to do the job. And awareness program on the ability of person with disabilities to work are relatively low. So for this reason, we are facing challenges and difficulties to establish them as a employee.
Right. Thank you, Mehbooba. Amin wants to add, I think, to the conversation that you're having onto this, please.
Yes, exactly. I'll agree to the point mentioned by Mehbooba regarding person with disabilities. Their also unwillingness to be part of certain jobs that are considered blue collar. I would like to mention an example of a trade that we introduced a few years back. We introduced plumbing, and we sent a batch of person with hearing a batch of deaf colleagues to our institute. It was a very expensive training. So we sent a batch of 10 deaf students to a training school, and once they were like about to get graduated, they all got jobs. So we were really excited that we have found out a great trade, and we can have more batches of people with hearing speech disabilities become part of plumbing. So the next time we initiated this program, we went to different deaf schools. And the second day, all the parents were after us that, how you are expecting our children to become plumbers. We are doing, they are getting education in their schools. So specifically in developing countries like ours, there is also a requirement of the awareness to persons with disabilities themselves as well, because there is a level of expectation. Majority of the people that we see, although they are not so much qualified, but there is an expectation that good jobs are those jobs that are done on computers. So if this perception can be removed or minimized, this will be a great contribution, and we can perhaps employ many people with disabilities in Pakistan as well. So yes, this is a big challenge for us as well.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think that's very integral cross region learning that we also sort of experienced it. Saad, moving on to you, I think you've heard what Mehbooba said and what Amin has also said. From an entrepreneur's perspective, what are like some of the options that can be created for persons with disabilities, especially to overcome such kind of challenges?
So if I may, about 5-6 years ago, I did a bunch of work in South Punjab on employability as well, where we did multiple day training for the youth to train them on employability skills. And just to build up on Mehbooba and Amin's word, so yes, I think personal mental barriers are own. I mean, disabled persons, and generally community, they have these stereotypes develop in the mind. Those barriers are the first thing we need to push through. In that, when we're talking about employability, we're talking about the capacity of having those skills and the ability that can go and do some gainful and meaningful work. And disability, of course, is not having, having some such ailment or some, by birth situation or some mental or physical injury, mental state or physical injury, which keeps you from getting that gainful work. At the same time, as life evolves and work has evolved, last century was a lot of labor intensive work. This century is seeing a lot of intellectual intensive work. In that, just to throw out an example, Microsoft has come up with a program Code Jumper, which actually teaches the blind to code. So, they have a model where you can become a coder if you are visually impaired. Then I'm thinking of this Pakistani startup ICO, who developed a wheelchair, which with your eye gestures, you can control the movement of the wheelchair. Then there's another startup, Bionics, which are doing great work in advanced level prosthetics and limbs. So there are these startups, people who also started to solve this problem. So the job market is also shifting. There are new jobs being created, and so for example, I won't classify myself as such a big one, but I have a leg injury which I suffered about 10 years ago. Well, for the last 2 days I've spent in constant pain. My left leg feels as if somebody's put some band on it, and the blood is stopped. But at the same time, most of my work is intellectual. It's it has, and I've also picked, I can't do that manually intensive labor anymore, which when I was in the construction industry, it was a lot of site visits and those sort of stuff. So my personal, or anybody who's on any spectrum of their ability, the first thing starts, I think, with the heart in oneself, to understand where we are in the bigger picture, where the world is and where we can fit ourselves. Like in entrepreneurship, we find a product to market fit. Here we need to figure out people with the service to market fit. In the long run, jobs might just run out as artificial intelligence takes over, but at the same time, there are the new opportunities also being created. So I think with the help of technology, it's also driving us to solve these problems, which is also helping to bring a lot of people from the disabled category into the employable category. So, and great work to you guys, because you work at the grassroots with these people, and I'm sure most of your time is spent on giving them confidence, boosting them up, telling them that this is the right way, and helping them figure out where they can fit in. So those are my 2 cents out of this conversation for now.
Right. Thank you, Saad. I think before we move on to our open conversation, I think a lot of points are coming. I want to move to Juan as well. Juan, you mentioned that you're trying to also come up with ways where persons with disabilities can work from home, and I think COVID-19 has literally changed the dynamics for everyone around here. So how your experience has been, and then how that can ensure and solve certain accessibility issues.
Thank you. So that overall situation of work style is changing now. So many people now come to know the benefit of working from home. And in Bangladesh context, in Dhaka, especially, there are lots of traffic jam, and we waste our lots of time on roads. So, when there are many freelancers and many people are working from home, I'm also. So then I thought that okay, it could be introduced to other people with disabilities. So then I have started, and I have found that this is very good for the people who are living in the city areas, but still it is a challenge for the rural areas, and we have to work a lot to develop the capacity and skills of people with disabilities so that they can work. And for this work, they need specialized skill. Maybe someone can work on website development, some maybe in graphics design, and some also on video animation like that. And also there are also some important activities for the DPOs, grassroots level, especially like that, developing their project planning and designing and their financial management. So like this. So in this case, so there are two types of challenge. One is that the infrastructure at the rural level are not that much improved for the uh, people with disabilities and others. And still in the ICT sector, accessibility is the issue. Although there are lots of research and doings on ensuring the web accessibility and other areas, but yet we have to do a lot so that people with disabilities can uh, work from home. Yeah, but
Right.
this is just a starting point. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. I think now we'll have an open conversation. Because I think there's Bangladesh, there's Pakistan and Nepal, and we have a lot of common challenges. And I think from all the conversation that I can sum up is that there are a lot of commonalities. What are some of the policy successes and challenges that have been experienced by Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal? That's something that I can talk about. I mean, I would like to start from you because recently in Pakistan, the state bank policy has been
we have a 5% quota. So a person with disabilities should be part of an organization, and that number should be 5%. But the biggest problem is the implementation of that quota. But what happened recently, actually last year, was that President of Pakistan, they called a meeting of all the banks and the State Bank of Pakistan, and they came together for an idea of introducing a policy in the banking sector. So although the implementation from the countryside from a provincial point of view is weak, but whenever state bank says something to commercial banks, so that is like the last word, and that is usually something that all the banks have to implement in any case. So we thought that we have this kind of influencer or the regulator with us. So we thought we engaged with the president of Pakistan, and finally we got this meeting where all the banks presidents were there, and the State Bank of Pakistan governor was part of that. And there was a committee formed after that meeting, in which we were also part of that committee, now PDP. So in that committee, we came up with different sort of things that should be done to make at least the banking sector accessible from an employee perspective and from a customer perspective. So it has things like this policy recently came in, and all the banks are like actually required, and they have to present reports, otherwise they will be penalized. They have to showcase things like they have to make, if they have a certain number of branches, they have to make model accessible branches. They have to implement quotas, they have to have REMs. So many banks have already started doing that, and once this policy came forward, a lot of banks came to us for consultancy program, that how now PDP as an organization can help them out to do this thing. And one of the recent success story was like we recently had an internship program with a local bank in Pakistan. It's called JS Bank. They hired 22 people. They initially started the internship program with 22 people, and then they hired 22 people. And there are many other banks who are actively pursuing this policy and implementing it. So this is something which was a current success story during the COVID time for us.
right. Thank you, Amin. Salahuddin, if you could add to what Bangladesh's policy mechanisms have been in.
Yeah, I'd like to add policy level success is there, obviously. In Bangladesh, the policy we have at the moment is very much right-based policy for the person with disabilities rights in terms of employment, education, built environment, and all those things. So this is a shift from the welfare-based to right-based policy, And also there is a law also imposed with this policy. That law says that if this policy are not implemented, then there will be some kind of regulation penalization thing. But still, as Amin mentioned, that implementation is a struggle, but government set some example that it's a kind of best practice from the government, that government nowadays, before it was not there in the executive positions, meaning the superior jobs, we call it Bangladesh civil service positions, there was no provision for the person with disability to be included, even though they can apply but at the 11th hour they were eliminated somehow. It is a systematic elimination thing. But last 3 or 4 years, government has deliberately included person with disability can be included in the superior job. Apart from those jobs which is not executive level, which is a little bit non-gazetted, but still there was some challenges, but government deliberate attempts to incorporate disabled persons. So we can call it as a positive discrimination towards the person with disability from the government side, because they are lagging behind. So government has taking things forward for the person with disability, so that it has been set as a best practice from the employment perspective of the person with disability, so that the other corporate sector, business sectors, other NGOs or government sector can see and follow the same things for their organization. But apart from this, also there is a need for a policy at the government level, at the organization level, to adopt at the strategic level of the organization. That is what ILO and also UNDP working with bilaterally with the government and also corporate sector, so that this corporate sector can have some kind of own disability policy, details out what kind of disabled people can be employed and what kind of facility there should be and how should recruit them, and also all those kind of, and if there is a need for extra skills training for them once they are hired. So all those kind of things are in progress. So I don't think it will the things will change overnight, but it will take time. But things are evolving in a right direction. Maybe it's a little bit slow in terms of other countries' pace, but still going on with the government initiative rather than from the private sectors or corporate sectors, and also some push from the NGOs or activists like us are there. For example, from the civil society, there's been shadow reporting for the implementation of CRPD. So shadow reporting is kind of putting pressure on the government, so that government is criticized by the civil society, that they are not maintaining as long as they have a commitment to implement the CRPD, but still there are some areas is not improved as committed by the government. So CRPD monitoring is one of the enforcement mechanism from the civil society side, so that government is always kind of state that they have to improve a lot, otherwise they will be in a position to be ashamed in a global level. So this is a kind of civil society reinforcement, but still we need to have some other kind of reinforcement to actually make the progress more speedy. That's the progress, but still we need to do a lot. Thank you.
So I'm muted, yes. So Neeraj and Bimal, if you could also shed light on the policies in Nepal, so that we can sort of understand.
Yes, I'm here. Regarding the policy in Nepal, we have welfare-based policy in the past, but recently we have right-based policy. We have Act on disability rights. Similarly, we have a regulation on the disability rights, and there is provision for the employment, and as well as there is provision for making the workplace accessible for person with disability. And nowadays, the public building is also making accessible because we have provision on the act and we have also this provision in our constitution. So we are now we are making when we make new building, a new construction where there is strictly said we need to make it physically accessible for person with disability. Similarly, we have disability accessible guideline, and that guideline also talks about the sign language facilities for person with disability. So our government provide free video call for deaf person because they cannot pay for the video call. It makes them their communication easy. And another thing is we have provision, I have already mentioned, we have provision for 5% reservation, and this reservation is adopted by Civil Service Act. Then this provision is also implemented by other acts like Corporate Agencies and Factories Act. But we need to work on implementation part because there is lack of monitoring and evaluation. So we cannot reach on the private sector as we expected. But in the government sector, it is strictly follow. But still we need to rethink on the placement because placement is also important topic in terms of person with disability because every person cannot work in every sector. So government doesn't think over the placement of person with a disability and just provide a quota and they hire or provide appointment letter to the person with a disability. But I think in my experience, we need to think about the placement if they can get appropriate job as per their capacity. They can work independently and they can work with their full efficiency. We have also make other provision if the person cannot work independently or cannot get employment. Government also provide allowance and it this allowance has been categorized into two types. For the profound disability, we provide 4,000 from this year, and for the severe kind of disability, they has been providing 2,200 in a month basis. So we have provision, but we need to provide orientation to the factories and other private sectors. Like our colleague said, in the banking system, we have also problem in the banking system because banks are neither physically accessible nor other types of, because I am visually impaired person. If I went to the, I go to the bank asks me for the guardianship or other types of security cards. That's we have problem, but we are doing advocacy in this area as well. I think we need to work hard, but there is still hope to improve the situation.
Okay, may I also add few things on
Yes.
Neeraj? Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
please.
Just building on the same thing that Neeraj shared, I found mainly the three things regarding the policy in Nepal. The first one is the resource. Generally, the government and on any other authority do not have any resource before formulating any policy. They generally put everything, whatever they found in the globe. Then second would be the investment. Definitely, the Constitution Act and other things would just be mentioning well, but that would not be concretized in practice or concrete guideline. Why? Because the Ministry of Finance would cut out those funds in the name of finance or the investment. That's why the major things is the investment, which also directly comes from the attitude. And third and final thing for me is the monitoring. Generally, we are saying monitoring, but I generally refer to say proactive monitoring. Generally, what happens in developing country like ours, the proactive monitoring is not happening. Only something is happening, then after that we are just going after that, right? That's why the proactive monitoring, it also comes from I think from the guy from Bangladesh already told regarding the monitoring of CRPD very frequently and other mandatory things. I agree with that, but until and unless we can have the proactive monitoring regarding any services and other things, whether they are concretized in the practice or not, that would not be translated into the practice. That's all about the practices in Nepal, right?
Right. Thank you, Vimal. I think I think the policy challenges again are similar across the region. I think we can also sort of take this time to like share some of our personal experience, because all of us, our colleagues with disability are here, and also like, a lot of us are working with persons with disabilities. And what are some of the innovative solutions that we can come up with to ensure that persons with disabilities are economically empowered? I mean, if you could also shed some light on the innovative rickshaw project that you've been leading, and around accessible design, and that could also be very helpful for like our other regional alumni.
Perfect. So what we have done is that you might have seen the regional rickshaws in your region. So we have shifted the functions which are on the legs to hands, and it's very locally made, and that can be done by anyone in any region. So that gives quick employment opportunity to a person with disabilities. There is a 1-month long course that every person who is part of this program goes through, where they are taught driving and basic mechanics, and after that he or she can start driving a rickshaw. This is something happening here, but the biggest challenge with this program is that the cost of a rickshaw is big, and although we try to finance through our donations and other mediums, but recently, again, the policy that I highlighted from the State Bank, there is a policy, there is subsidized loan scheme for people with disabilities, and we are trying to align that with our rickshaw project so the project can be scaled, because we have seen examples in front of us that a person who gets rickshaw now, he or she goes outside the office and they start earning from the same moment, and that doesn't only give an employment opportunity to person with disability, it serves as a very good tool for us to advocate to general employers that if a person with disabilities can drive a rickshaw in the busy roads of Karachi, they can do many other things. So whenever we go to a session in an organization that you have to hire a person with disability for a call center, for a receptionist, for computer operator, graphic designer, XYZ. So we give this example that we have Imran Bhai with us, who is a wheelchair user. He has designed it. He is driving those rickshaws, and we have this number of colleagues who are driving these rickshaws. And if you provide some kind of alteration, if you provide some kind of accommodation in the work that you do, you can create, wonders. So this is good opportunity for us to economically empower and to promote the cause as well.
Right. Thank you. I mean, I think rickshaw is something that is common to Nepal, Bangladesh, all over the region. So I think this is something like an important takeaway that our other colleagues can take. Bimal, if you could also talk about how, your employment journey has been in Nepal, and, what challenges you faced and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so many things are just done here, but regarding my experience with just jointly with others, I generally found three things. The first one is the very first one is that so many people have not experienced the income generating things. For instance, almost 35% of people are there. Even initially, I was not even getting the job and other things. At least I have to just empower myself with computer skills and other things. Then other things, generally what happens, just working with other people without disability might be another issue. For instance, generally what happens, employer would go to another option if he or she should provide any adaptation as an investment from me and other like me. That's why generally what happens, one research here in Nepal also shows that almost 60% of employees have not adapted anything, and only 2% of employers are totally satisfied with the work of persons with disabilities. This contradict or generally what happens, they are only employing or hiring those people with whom the needs they would suffice with. For instance, they generally just would not ready to invest generally regarding the private sector and others, but when they are just they would be ready to have persons with disability within their companies. Then as though the persons with disability can suffice their own existing needs for existing environment. That's why the people or employers are always seeking the people with mild disability, always while making job matching things. When I was there in NFD, National Federation of Disabled Nepal, always employers came us to request to send the persons with mild disability so that the needs of those employers can be sufficed. But in the case of few of the social civil society organizations, NGO and other things, at least they are the human rights organization. At least they are starting to rethink and think regarding those things. At least people like me are being provided the sufficient assistive devices and other things. For instance, we have to pay more than $1,000 for JAWS and other softwares. Definitely, that would be the case of investment, which generally employers are not seeking for. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Bimal. I think those are very important points that you've shared. Siobhan, Amrita, if you could also add into this conversation what your experiences have been.
Most of the points are already being told by Bimalji and Niraji, but I would like to share my personal experience while working with an organization like about 3 years ago. When I was working there, I felt like, I was just fulfilling their disability quota because I did not feel like I was growing. So what my point is, even after hiring a person with disability, they just treat like us. They cannot do many things, and they don't give other opportunities to grow and learn ourselves. So that's one of the challenges I face while working with the organization. Yeah, that's it.
Right. So I think we're also like sort of coming to the conclusion of our conversation. This would be an open question. How do you think that we can actually address these myths and preconceived notions? For instance, Amin mentioned earlier that you have to highlight stories and narratives of change makers like you. So what are some of the things that we can actually do together to slowly eradicate these myths and preconceived notions?
May I speak immediately?
Sure, I think anybody can know. So this is an open conversation, so please just,
Thank you.
chip in your points.
So many other things are also here, but I do have major two things regarding the way out, right? For instance, I'm always with the employer's attitude side. For instance, definitely we have to just make prepared with job seekers as well. But until and unless we work with employer's attitude and behavior, definitely there won't be possibility to have the hired persons with disabilities, right? That's why the first one would be the knowledge sharing platform. For instance, there might be community of practitioners and something that we can establish within the country, within the territory, and within the organization as well. For instance, we cannot educate thousands of employers and other people by going door to door, right? That's why, as Amin told, as one of the options, then and next would be the big platform regarding the community of practitioners. For instance, here when I was there in National Federation of Disabled Nepal in last few years, we tried just establishing one community practitioner forum within the FNCCI, which would be the largest employer of industries and companies, right? We were trying to establish the section regarding the knowledge sharing platform so that everybody, even without knowing, can benefit from those things. Then second thing that I would highlight would be the accessibility audit, adaptation support, and even the national and regional award might also be the very good things to promote those things at public level that we experienced here in Nepal as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vimal. So I think very quickly, if you all could just share.
I want to add just 2 points in this regard.
Yes. So Neeraji, just because just to tell you all of you that I think we're short on time, but I would just like all of you to be very brief and also sort of sum up your takeaway from the session.
May I add?
Okay. Yes, Neeraji, please.
Okay. I think for the government, I suggest to make paperless office because for the visually impaired and other person also, easy to work in the internet, email, or in the computer. There is no problem, but we have problem while working with the hard copy, writing in the paper. So we need to focus on that. We have reason to make a paperless office, but it is not in reality. And the other is we need to make a documentary and jingle, and we should broadcast from national television that makes many persons sensitized on it. And I think if government want to sensitize other offices, like I'm working in the local government, and there is other unit also, and we can provide orientation to the both how to treat with the person with a disability and how to make disability friendly environment in the office. That's all. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. I also want to say something as a takeaway from this conversation. I think our regional challenges and problems and issues are almost same. So I think making best practice communicable to the mass audience is very important, because so many best practice we have seen in the very micro level, but we cannot see it in the macro level as a advocacy tool for the audience, like government, for the audience like corporate business sectors, so that we can reach them through communication. Because today is communication so easy through Facebook, through print media, through television, so many things, so many communication tools we have. So one thing, and then demonstration to the target audience. So we know the our target audience, who are the target audience. As Bimol says, we cannot go educate every corporate people or every industries companies, so we can communicate to them target wise. Another thing is important, that, and also monitoring whatever we have done. We have to monitor them, how much progress we have done so far, in terms of setting some indicators. So what are the indicators we have to monitor, and over the period we have some kind of evidence base, so that with this evidence we can show country wise or regional wise, that is what we have progress, we are lagging behind, there are some gaps, that gaps we need to fill it up. And then use of technology as a part of innovation projects. So it's very much important to use the technology, software technology, all those things are available now it's so simple, and everybody, almost all the expertise we have, so we can use this technology, software technology, or database management, all those things we can use for those who are person with disability, for the employment environment, for informal and formal job as well. So this is as part of an innovation we can include. And also for the policy reinforcement mechanism, we need to find it out, how can we reinforce this. Thanks. That is what my takeaway from this.
Thank you so much, Salahuddin. So I think this is we're coming to the conclusion of our topic, and I think we all can stay connected and share these experiences and points as we speak.
I just have a point, I think, which might be of some value. If just a minute.
Yes, Saad. So I think just quickly, please do it, and then I can ask.
I mean, just to sort of second Salahuddin's word. I mean, you need to have it KPI. You need to measure it, so you can see what's working and what's not. Since I have this corporate background, the world is very real in the corporate world. So you have to track, you have to deliver. Just to build on that one, and I think this generally as an activist also, it's a four-pronged approach. There needs to be the government lobbying, so we can set the regulation in place. We need to build the community awareness so the stereotypes can be addressed. Corporate training is essential because this is essentially about employability in the industry. And then the real work is with the person who a lot of times sees themselves as the victim. I think here's something which is a very powerful medium is art. And I've worked a lot with interactive theater. I've also applied interactive theater into corporate. And that's where really you can get the victim to feel that empathy with their own stereotype and to realize their own absurdities or barriers at times. So I would really push this art thing out there for everybody to use.
Right. Thank you, Saad. I think, again, art is something that transcends any kind of role. So thank you so much, everyone. As we have this discussion, we also got to know that President Biden has announced Sara Minkara as the United States Special Advisor on International Disability Rights as well. And on this note, I would now invite Assistant Cultural Attaché Juan German to give his closing remarks and conclude this conversation.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. You all are very energetic and accomplished and passionate about what you do, and I can hear it through your conversations, and that's great. So I wanted just to give some quick remarks and say, so on behalf of the U.S. mission in Pakistan, I just wanted to thank all of you, the alumni from Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan for participating in the 14th Regional Monthly Dialogue series. This is part of our series, which is very important. And we talk about various topics and we try to connect various alumni from different countries just to make sure that Alumni Network is strong and continues to connect alumni from various regions. As mentioned, my name is Juan German, and I am the Assistant Cultural Attaché for the Public Affairs section here at the U.S. Embassy in Pakistan, Islamabad. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to have this very important discussion on employment opportunities for people with disabilities. This is a very important topic and an issue that deserves more attention around the world. The U.S. Department of State firmly believes that disability rights are basic human rights, not special rights. Persons with disabilities have the same right as all people to non-discrimination, access, equality to opportunity, inclusion, and full participation in society. These are the basic principles underlying the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Yet the rights of disabled people are often violated due to prejudice and discrimination. Physical, attitude, and institutional barriers can also marginalize people with disabilities. This is why the State Department's International Disability Rights Team leads the department's effort to encourage and assist foreign governments and civil society organizations to increase their commitment and capacity to protect the rights and ensure the inclusion and full participation of persons with disabilities. As I was reading through your profiles and listening to your stories and experience today, I am fascinated by your dedication, your commitment, and your leadership in your professions, and your persistence to bring change to your communities. You should all be very proud of your accomplishments. Since 2011, past Pakistan, the public affairs section here in Pakistan, through the PUAN Network, is engaging alumni from South and Central Asia in virtual and in-person dialogues, regional integration, and networking opportunities. PUAN hosted more than 100 alumni from South and Central Asia and in Islamabad in the last 7 years. Alumni from the region attended the PUAN conferences and master classes on themes that resonate and are important to the people of this region. Similarly, PUAN founded partially more than 40 Pakistani alumni to attend Model United Nations summits in Dhaka and Kathmandu. There's so much in common between your nations, culturally, socially, politically, and this is a great opportunity for you to talk about the challenges and solutions on common issues such as climate change, higher education, energy, governance, human rights, and women's empowerment, just to name a few. Using our digital resources, our goal is to sustain alumni engagement and promote regional integration. In addition to sharing your experiences and best practices, I hope that today's session was informative and it helped to create a venue that you can develop long-lasting friendships and connections with each other. In conclusion, the U.S. Embassy in Pakistan is extremely grateful for your time and dedication to our activities and program. I want to thank our regional missions, our cultural affairs officers, our assistant cultural affairs officers, and alumni coordinators, US EFP, PUAN team for adding your alumni, and everyone in our various communications and logistics teams for making these sessions possible. So with that, I'm wishing you all the best, and I hope you have a great weekend ahead. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So I think let's all keep our videos on, and I think Shanina will be taking a picture. Shanina, over to you now.
Yep, you will have requested to please turn on your cameras for a while. Let's just wait for like 10 more seconds or so for our non-video participants, because I can still see like 4 or 5 non-video participants. Okay, for them now, I presume that they want to be part of our group photo. Yeah, they are very well. I can see now. Perfect. For the count of 3, please. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Now I want to take another one just in case the previous one gets messed up at the time of processing. On the count of 3, please. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and your valuable inputs. We are going to post this recording on our social media, subject to clearance and senior management. Other than that, keep an eye on our social media for the post, which we'll be making about today's session shortly. It was pleasure seeing you all, and more power to you all, because you all are doing amazing work in your respective fields, and together we all are trying to make this world a better place when we leave this. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Rena, for your moderation. Thank you, German, for your remark. Thank you so very much, to our respective colleagues from the 3 countries for your valuable time and input. With this is Shaila Mazhar, Communications Officer PUAN US CFP, signing out from here. Thank you so much.
Great. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Hema. Thank you, Shaila.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Thank you, everybody. Great work.